Hello everybody, this is What the? Whoa, that was weird. Well, okay then. Hello everybody, this is Kirby. Oh my gosh, it happened again. Huh. Well, let's just try recording one last time. Hello everybody, this is Kirby over yonder. I think we're good. I think there are no more whips. And Okay, seriously, what the heck is going on? Johnny Test, it was you all along? I guess the only way to stop the whip cracks would be if I did a Rot or Rebirth episode on Jonathan Testicular himself. No, that's not contrived, you're contrived. Johnson Testament aired his first 3 seasons on Kids WB in 2005 and moved to Cartoon Network in 2008 for seasons 4 to 6. The first season was animated by the Warner Brothers Animation Studio, while the rest of the series was done by Cookie Jar Entertainment, and the change is pretty noticeable. But speaking of the first season of Tawny Jest, how well does it hold up? Let's find out. I'm gonna be honest, I really don't think the first season of John Test is that bad. I mean, it's not a great season or anything, but it doesn't have a lot of the problems that the later seasons have. First off, there are no whip cracks, and the sound effects as a whole are greatly downplayed this season. I also kinda dig the art style of this season. It was done by Warner Bros. Animation as opposed to the rest of the series, which was done by Cookie Jar Entertainment. I really enjoyed the comic book-y style of it. The art style almost kind of reminds me of Clone High, which makes sense since they're both Canadian cartoons that aired in the 2000s. And this season as a whole is just a lot less obnoxious than the later seasons. There's a lot less of characters yelling or being annoying, and more of a focus on telling stories. I'm not gonna act like the stories are super well told and the jokes are super funny, but the stories are decent, and it's not like the show is painfully unfunny. Season 1 of Jimmy Quiz is the exact definition of a fine show, and hey, that's probably better than the rest of it. Season 2 of Not Dexter's Lab is a downgrade from Season 1, though not quite terrible yet. One nice thing I will say about this season is that it actually can get me to laugh occasionally. While Season 1 never really got me to laugh at all, Season 2 does occasionally have a good one-liner. It's usually no more than once or twice per episode, but hey, that's still good for Johnny Test standards. As you can probably tell, the animation really took a turn for the worse this season. Cookie Jar Entertainment did not do this show any favors, replacing the cool comic book art style from the first season with cheap flash animation filled with motion tweening. They also really started overusing the sound effects. This wasn't quite when they started overusing the whip sound effect, but still, there were a ton of overused sound effects. Because that's what makes the show wacky and brings all the funny moments. But still, the stories were okay and there was a fair amount of creativity, and like I said, there was the occasional good joke. So the show wasn't quite terrible yet. But hey, we'll get there. Oh boy, we'll get there. Season 3 is when Johnny Test started to gain some of its more infamous aspects. More stilted animation, more characters screaming, more sound effects, and yes, more whip crack. Oh yes, this season gave birth to the oh so pleasant on the ears whip sound effect, which will be heard constantly throughout the rest of the series. In fact, from here on I'm going to be averaging about how many whip cracks there are per episode from each season, and at the end I will be ranking the seasons in terms of how many whip cracks average they have. Anyways, Season 3 has an average of about 54 1/3 whip cracks per episode. Trust me, if you think this is bad, just you wait. While seasons 1 and 2 of Johnny Test were tolerable, season 3 is pretty bad. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I would not call it good. But hey, it only gets better from here, right? Right? Oh dear. Season 4 is when Johnny Test really started running out of ideas. While you could argue the first 3 seasons at least had some creativity, Season 4 is when the show started using very typical cartoon tropes, as well as a ton of parodies. You can really tell that the writers had no idea what to do with this season. The show got very formulaic. Every episode just felt like Johnny wants something, his sisters make an invention for it, then it goes wrong. And unlike a show like Phineas and Ferb, it never goes out of its way to subvert or make fun of its formula. But hey, at least we have an episode about Johnny becoming a transgender. Yes, it's real. Trust me, it's real and it's an episode, alright. This season had an average of about 72 whip cracks per episode. That's quite a bit more than season 3. This season is just incredibly painfully boring. That's really all I have left to say about it. It's a very boring season, but could you believe it gets more boring than this? To be honest, I don't even know what to say about Season 5. It's probably my least favorite season of the show, just because I have nothing to say about it. Pretty much everything I said about Season 4 applies to this season, but more so. It's more formulaic, it's more obnoxious, and yes, it's even more boring. At this point, the only thing I actually find entertaining about this show is Bling Bling Boy. And yes, I mean that with all sincerity. He is a genuinely entertaining and fun villain, and I'm so happy every time he's on screen. This season has an average of about 85.7 whip cracks per episode. Not a whole lot more than season 4 to be honest. So we've only got one season left. Let's see how season 6 wraps up the series. At this point, I really don't know what I have left to say about Johnny Test. So instead of talking about the season as a whole, I'm just gonna talk about the 2 most notable episodes. Johnny's 100th episode. Johnny falls into a coma and needs his friends to tell heartwarming stories about him to wake him up. It's a pretty alright episode, it's fairly sweet, and it does feel like a nice celebration of the show as a whole. Bling Bling Boy's story is easily the best part because, come on, it's Bling Bling Boy. It's not a great episode by any means, but for Johnny Test standards, it's pretty decent. There's also the finale episode, Johnny's Last Chapter. It's about Johnny and Dookie getting stuck in a history book. Nothing about the episode feels like the grand finale the title makes it sound like it is. Plus, it's a trope I've seen done before in shows like Futurama and The Fairly Odd Parents. But hey, I'd take anything over the Samurai Jack finale. Also, Cowboy Bling Bling. Pretty nice if you ask me. This is normally the part where I tell you guys about average how many whip cracks there were per episode in this season. But before I do, I just want you guys to brace yourselves, because I was legitimately shocked by how many whip cracks there are per episode in this season. There is, no joke, an average of 165 2/3 of a whip crack per episode this season. And keep in mind that it was legitimately really hard for me to keep up with the amount of whip cracks this season, so it might actually be higher than this. So, Johnny Test. Did it rot, or was it rotted? Yeah, surprise surprise, Johnny Test is not a very good show. Don't get me wrong, it's not the worst cartoon I've ever seen or anything, not even close, but it ranges from being painfully average at best to being pretty obnoxious at worst. As far as the whip cracks go, it's pretty clear that they decided to add more and more every season. What a wonderful decision. But hey, speaking of whip cracks, it appears as if mine have stopped. Huh, well that's nice. Oh my gosh.